Good evening and welcome to a Tucker Carlson Tonight Live special. Months from now, if and when we're finally able to assess this pandemic rationally and honestly, it'll be clear that it was mostly a disaster for the old and the sick. 30-year-olds in Brooklyn have made the most noise, flooding the internet with their neuroses. But it's old people who've really suffered. About a third of all deaths in this country so far have occurred in long-term care facilities. We told you a lot about the tragedy unfolding in New York. As of tonight, almost 6,000 nursing home residents have died there after Governor Andrew Cuomo forced facilities to admit infected patients. But it's not only happening in New York. In New Jersey, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, for example, deaths in nursing homes account for more than half of the statewide totals. So if you're old and in a facility, this virus has been genuinely dangerous. But the real story is even worse than that, thanks to bad policies. Many nursing homes have banned all visits from relatives, even those who have tested negative for the coronavirus. That means for millions of aging Americans, lockdowns equal suffering alone, marooned in isolation away from children and grandchildren, often in the final days of their lives. It's hard to imagine anything sadder than that, but in fact there is something sadder. No visitors means no real supervision. No one who cares about the elderly can check in and see how they're doing. This is an invitation to the most awful kinds of abuse. Take a look at this video. It's from the Westwood Nursing Center in Detroit. We warn you, and we don't say this lightly, it is highly upsetting. We think you should see it because it's real. It goes on like that for 90 seconds, but we'll spare you. The monster throwing those punches is 20 years old. The helpless resident he's smashing in the face is 75. Westwood Nursing Center says it had no idea the assault even happened. The video wound up on social media, apparently was posted by the proud attacker himself. People saw it and called police. They arrested him. He's in jail tonight. Police will not tell us his name. It's not clear why. He deserves to be famous. What is clear is that the Westwood Nursing Center was a scary place even before this assault took place. A 2019 Medicare inspection of the facility found that a resident had vomited on a curtain. 2 weeks later, Westwood staff still hadn't replaced or even cleaned it. Imagine all that the inspectors didn't find. We'll help you imagine. This video is from a nursing home outside Peoria, Illinois. It was recorded in 2015. An elderly man beaten to the ground by a staff member.
This video is from a care facility in Creve Coeur. Watch the 84-year-old man. He comes into the room with his walker and tries to get something out of a drawer. Police say the caregiver, Ernestine Cobbins, struggles with him and then throws him to the floor. Fortunately, he was not seriously injured. Officers reviewed the tape. Cobbins was charged with third-degree elderly abuse.
Imagine doing that to a man with a walker. The woman who did it, who committed that crime, is free today. In fact, she is still in the healthcare business. You can look up her LinkedIn page online. We just did about 10 minutes ago, and she looks perfectly content in her picture. And then there are these three nursing home employees in North Carolina. They're accused of staging fistfights between dementia patients for their own amusement.
They uncovered two separate incidents. In one, 32-year-old Marilyn McKee is accused of physically assaulting a 73-year-old resident, pushing her into a room while 20-year-old Tanasia Tyson and 26-year-old Tanisha Jordan filmed the encounter and did not help. In another incident, all three are accused of encouraging a fight between two residents, ages 70 and 73. Not only did the workers not stop the fight, they filmed it. The staff members reportedly captured on the video saying, "Punch her in the face."
That happened just this fall. From what we can tell, none of these women is currently in jail tonight. Apparently the crime wasn't serious enough. It's not like they tried to open a gym in New Jersey or dared to walk on dry sand in Los Angeles. And by the way, these are not isolated incidents, far from it. Consider the following headlines. They're all from last year. Florida woman accused of raping man with dementia at nursing home. Nursing assistant who raped patient sentenced to 12 years in prison. Everett man has history of raping patients, prosecutors say. Hillcrest Nursing Home faces $50 million lawsuit over rape of elderly woman. And then in Seattle, a nursing assistant was arrested after being caught on camera repeatedly sexually assaulting a patient. Once again, the nursing home didn't even know it happened. They didn't detect the crime because no one was watching. The victim's family was suspicious, so they put a camera in the room. In Texas, a nurse called Billy Schmurmer was arrested for murdering patients. Police say he killed more than 20 elderly people before anyone noticed. Again, all of that happened in a single year, last year, 2019. So what's happening in nursing homes right now? Well, we don't really know. That's the point. Family and loved ones aren't allowed in to see. Chances are they would be heartbroken if they knew. How did this tragedy happen? It wasn't by accident. Our politicians did it. They did it to the most vulnerable people in our society, the ones who have earned the greatest respect, the Americans who actually did build this country. Now our helplessly elderly are locked in stinking cells, cut off from the only ones who love them. Some of them, as we said, are raped and beaten. Thousands and thousands have died alone. They don't deserve this, and the rest of us don't deserve the leaders whose neglect and bad judgment made it possible. Charles Camus II is a professor of theological and social ethics at Fordham University. He's the author of the book Resisting Throwaway Culture, and he joins us tonight. Professor, thanks so much for coming on. It does seem like, I understand the reasoning behind wanting to isolate people in nursing homes, but it does seem like a thoughtful politician would wonder what it would be like to be locked away alone with no one visiting you. So why couldn't we test family before they go visit their loved ones in nursing homes?
Tucker, this is bigger than one politician. It is a monster issue. Speaking as an ethics professor, I just want to make this really global point. I think a lot about historical moments, history calling us to act on behalf of the most vulnerable, civil rights, pro-life movement. History is calling us again, Tucker. Nobody can watch that intro that you just did and not hear the voice of history calling us to act. The pandemic is forcing us to look at places we don't want to look. And by God, there are good nursing homes out there. We don't want to say otherwise. Sure. But now that we know the scope of the problem and the gravity of the problem, the only question is, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it?
You know, we checked this afternoon because the more I thought about it, the more upset I got. And so many of the people arrested last year, in fact, every single one we could track down was free. No one was serving a jail sentence. And you think of the things that people go to jail for. What does that say?
Well, in my book, Resisting Throwaway Culture, I try to argue that what's behind this is we have throwaway people. We have prenatal children we have throwaway. We have sick people we throw away through euthanasia. We have people we throw away through hookup culture and through in our jails and prison systems. This is the next one. This is literally a throwaway culture. We put people away, so we give plausible deniability about our own death and dying and those of our family members, so we don't have to think about it. Now we're forced to look at it, and this is one of the silver linings. There aren't many of the pandemic, but one silver lining is we are now forced to look.
That is such a deep point. So your view is that we ignore end-of-life questions because we don't want to consider the end of our own lives.
I don't need to tell you, Tucker, we have a youth-worshiping, death-denying culture that tries to revel in the moment. And especially as we move away from transcendent views about our ultimate reality, we tend to live in that moment even more. And our death becomes that much more frightening. And especially those of our family members, too. And we push it off literally to the places you just highlighted. And now we have to act. Are we going to move to welcome these people back into our homes if we can? Are we going to move to demand from government, Medicare and Medicaid to actually pay these people who work in these homes a living wage? Are we going to move as media to cover these stories? You're leading with this today, but 50% of the deaths, the Washington Post said 50% of the deaths from COVID-19 were people who were in nursing homes or other long-term care facilities. You would think that 50% of the coverage would then cover those stories, but it's not even close to that. So thank you for leading with it tonight, but we actually need the media to step up and report out these stories.
Why is that? It almost seems like people are admitting they don't care about the deaths of older people who are shunted away in these facilities, but then they're, focused on the relatively small percentage of people who were younger. I mean, it just seems so disproportionate to me.
I don't know, is it too cynical to say that doesn't make a lot of money? Yeah, I mean, how much money does covering nursing home deaths make media organizations? I mean, it's expensive to do. This is one thing that is really, our media have really suffered from, especially investigative reporting. It's expensive to do investigative reporting.
Yeah, it is.
We may not have the resources, especially if we're guided by clicks and advertising revenue.
I think you're right. And I think this is really important, and I think your point about denying our own mortality being at the center of this is absolutely right. Thank you for saying that. Professor, good to see you tonight.
Thanks, Tucker.
Well, for months now, Dr. Anthony Fauci has been one of the most persuasive and powerful voices in favor of the coronavirus lockdowns. Now, suddenly, he seems to have pivoted 180 degrees. He's warning that the lockdowns could hurt people irreparably if they continue. Dave Portnoy noticed this. He thinks it's as weird as we do. He'll react after the break. Welcome back to tonight's live special. Dr. Anthony Fauci has done more than maybe any other American official to promote long-term nationwide quarantines, the lockdowns that are destroying our economy. Fauci suggested that handshakes should go away forever. He told Congress that reopening schools next fall might be a bad idea. But then today, Fauci seemed to wobble. Here's what he said in an interview with CNBC.
We can't stay locked down for such a considerable period of time that you might do irreparable damage and have unintended consequences, including consequences for health.
Oh, irreparable damage, unintended consequences. It might have been nice to hear a little bit more of that months ago when it actually mattered, back when doctors were being kicked off of YouTube for saying exactly the same thing. Barstool Sports President Dave Portnoy noticed and had these thoughts.
This is my whole point. Fauci, I just did a rant that went viral literally last week because you're like, if we open up the country, everyone's going to die. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. Now, I put a little heat on him and people are like, we got to open, we're going to die if we stay inside. Now he's just, the wind blows and he's like, okay, no, we can't stay in forever. It causes irreparable damage if we stay. What is it, Fauci? Pick a side, or at least say you don't know what the you're talking about. If nobody knows anything, then what the are we doing?
Dave Portnoy has been locked indoors for a couple of months in New York City. He joins us tonight by Skype. Nicely put, Dave. So you're sitting at home, you're monitoring this, you've got a special interest because you are quarantined yourself. What did you make of what Fauci said?
Well, I mean, I was taken off guard. And first of all, I did escape to Nantucket. That's why I didn't have the suit and the ties to the team Portnoy. But, you know, I thought I was taking crazy pills for a second. I really did. And listen, I don't mean to pile on Fauci, but we're making very important decisions based on what he's saying. And I think it's okay to say, I really don't know, guys. But I get the feeling if you ask him this question, or what's 1 + 1 equal, you're going to get 7 different answers. It's okay to say you don't know. That's kind of my point. I don't think anybody really knows the true answers. It's a moving target. It's a disease we've never met with before. But that's why I think at this point, you're going to let people, individuals, make decisions for themselves, because nobody knows. The only thing, as I said before, that we absolutely know for certain is if you continue the quarantine, you continue the lockdown, tons of people are going to lose their livelihoods. Those people should have the choice to make the decision rather than depend on things that, listen, Fauci may be the nicest guy in the world, but he said, wear masks, don't wear masks. He said, you know, the lockdown's going to go on indefinitely. We're going to end the lockdown. So it's just tough to really put that much stake in what he's saying when I just don't think he knows. Maybe Trump just got him in a room and shook him. He's like, today you say this. So I don't know. But it's tough to take it seriously when you literally say the exact opposite. And we're not talking months. We're talking days apart. What changed?
So, look, I think your point about not really knowing what the truth is an absolutely fair and important one. And I've certainly been wrong on this show a bunch of different times. But I admit it because I know that people have YouTube and they can check. Fauci comes on and acts like he's always been saying this when 2 days ago he was saying the opposite. Shouldn't he at least acknowledge the change?
Absolutely. And you know, any politician or anybody in general, I would much prefer somebody. First of all, I have no problem saying, guess what? I don't know. I'd rather that.
Right.
But if you have a strong opinion, say it. And if you're wrong, then say, hey, hand up. I'm the first one. I like to break my arm when I make a mistake. And you know what? American people, they appreciate that. They want to know when you're wrong. I invested in a Chinese company. You probably hate me for it. Baba, it tanked today. There was a revolution. Guess what? I made the wrong move. You have to just say it. Own up to it. No one's expecting any human being to be perfect. But when you say a very important statement and act like it never happened and say something different, it raises, everyone's like, what is he doing? I don't know that he's doing it intentionally, but either take a side or say, I don't know, and acknowledge when you make a mistake. That's how you get trust, because right now, I don't trust what he says. I don't know how anybody could. And again, I don't know that's intentional. I just honestly think this thing moves. And if you go, there's videos of Fauci all through this. He's on different sides, depending on the day, depending on the mood. Like I said, the way the wind blows. And we're making seemingly life-changing decisions for other people based on facts that clearly are not facts.
Well, exactly. So yesterday, Fauci did an interview with Julia Roberts, not the journalist, but the actress. Did that make you trust him more or less?
There's an element that you'd want your lead doctor in pandemic not going with a Hollywood starlet, but it doesn't. He's got a believable face. Listen, if you put him in front of me and I didn't know all the mismatched stuff, I'd be like, I trust him. He looks smart. But I'm paying attention to the words. I wouldn't say talking to Julia Roberts. Listen, I like Pretty Woman as much as the next guy, so I'm not going to hold that against them.
I totally agree about the way he looks. When I see Fauci on TV with the sound off, I think, I believe that guy. And he does come off as a nice person. We've interviewed him on this show. It's nothing personal. But I think people have listened so long because he looks like the guy you would listen to. Very smart.
He absolutely looks like an expert. And to be honest, in every single question or speech, he sounds like an expert. Like if they're all one-offs, I'd be like, okay, I'll listen and I'll believe. But now there's enough footage. Everyone's locked inside and they're hanging on what he says. Like when he goes in front of the Senate and says, if we open too quickly, there's going to be mass damage and death. Those are heavy, heavy words to then go say the exact opposite. In a week later, it's almost the gravity of what he says in the moment. It's almost like he's losing it. He's going to be very careful with the words because, again, what he says, I feel like, is what a lot of states are basing their reopening on. And it changes. So exactly right. What information, what model, it's always a moving target. And what we got to remember is, again, I don't think anyone really knows the answer, but it's tough then to tell a business owner, hey, you're going to lose your business because what a Fauci said. And the guy's like, well, at what point, when, what yardstick are we using or what day are we using what Fauci said?
I think at this point I trust Julia Roberts more. Dave Portnoy, great to see you.
She's very believable. She's a very believable American. That's the team Portnoy. At least stand for something and then admit when you're wrong. But Julia Roberts, very, very believable.
Very. Good to see you, man.
You too.
Well, to the extent you think about race at all, and let's hope you don't think about it too much,